But when I was doing my very first sales job, like it was like 100% cold calling. I did end up doing LinkedIn outreach, which like crushed it. But it was 100% cold calling to start. And I wrote out every single objection I could possibly imagine they would give me. And I had it taped on my computer so that I would always have a quick reference no matter what they said. I knew I would be prepared with a very compelling overcoming objection statement. Trying to think of some of those things on the fly can be difficult, because the emotions are in it and you're anxious. And so if you just kind of see this as like an automation, so to speak, like if they say this, what's the best response to that? Mm-hmm. And then continue to go through it. But part of doing that is making sure that you set the stage for them to be open and honest about those objections, which is why you have to tell them, I need a yes or a no. Either one is fine, but here's what it is. You wait until they ask you the price. Hey, glad you asked, here's what it is, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Or if you think it needs to be custom, go ahead and say that. And now you shut up. And they have to either say yes, no, or here's my objection. Those are the only three options. So if they say yes, cool, get the payment, send them on their way. If they say no, I would still say, yeah, that's totally fine. Tell me, what is it about this that you don't feel is a good fit for you? You want to get their feedback and don't be afraid to ask. Because sometimes it's a miscommunication. Maybe they think something is one thing and it's not. Yeah. If they say, yeah, I really like this. I think it all sounds really good, but I'm going to need to talk to my wife, my husband, my business partner, check X, Y, or Z. Well, you say, great, let's go ahead and get a deposit down. And then when you come back, we can take care of the rest. If you decide that it's, if they're not happy with this decision, it's a refundable deposit. You just have to give me a call and let me know, and we'll go ahead and refund that for you. But this is just to hold your spot at the price we discussed to make sure we don't work with another client in your area. So getting the deposit, if they have one of those, because that's an easy out for anybody. You can overcome those still. People have done it to me before, but the truth is personality matters too. Like if I'm investing in my business, I don't need my husband's permission. It's my business's money. Like I don't feel that I do. There are some people, maybe they work to get they started this business together or whatever, or maybe they just don't have that same opinion. I still believe it's courteous to do so. But at the same time, if I feel like something's right for my business, I'm going to do it. And so the question I would ask sometimes is like, oh, okay, what's their role in the business? And just get them to talk about it. Cause maybe they have no role in the business. And I would also even say, are they really educated about, marketing? Is that why you feel like their input would be really valuable? Probably not. They probably don't know anything. So why are you asking them? But just asking questions to me is the single best form of communication in every situation, honestly, because if people aren't asking questions, they're making a lot of assumptions, whether they realize it or not, because that's the only way to get truthful information is to ask the question and let someone tell you. If you're not doing that, then you might think it's one thing. And then you're like, well, maybe they were thinking this, or maybe it was the price or whatever. Just ask them to tell you. And yeah, sometimes people are still untruthful, but if you make it seem like it's a very normal, natural, neutral conversation. It's not like there is no negative connotation necessarily. You're just saying, hey, that's totally fine. Tell me what is it about this that you weren't happy with? I love getting this feedback. It helps me do a better job. They're going to be a lot more inclined to be honest with you. And again, if they're not honest, whatever, but at least you tried. If you don't get the truthful objections, there's no way to overcome them ultimately. So that has to be the first priority. And sometimes maybe it's not a good fit, maybe it's really not. And you also need to know that too. But for the most part, so much of it goes back to mindset. Everybody's been burned by a marketing person in the past, so much of the time. And I already had 2 conversations about it today, and it's, barely 1 p.m. So it is very, very common. And if you could overcome that objection, that's the first one I would start with. And I always start by saying, there's really two problems that I see in the marketing industry. The first one is that businesses don't understand the difference between an organic marketer and a paid advertising specialist. They think that the organic marketer is going to get them the results of the paid advertising specialist. That's not the case. The second one is that people who do claim to be, lead generation specialists, they think that getting the lead is the end of their job, when in reality, it's not. There's a lot that needs to happen after the lead comes in order to actually help a business convert a sale. And very few marketers have that. That's part of the system that we have. And it is light years different from what other people in the industry are offering. And that's kind of like my overcoming objections statement for that one. And it works because it's true. It really is true. And they're going to be like, you're so right. You're so right. Acknowledge that there are a lot of crappy marketers out there, or that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what a marketer should really be helping this business do. So I would just start there, but use the phone call framework, get them to open up and talk, really let them talk more than you talk. You need to be listening most of the call. And if you talk, you need to be asking questions primarily until towards the end. And it's all in there. It'll be like, now you transition to the call. You're going to say, great. This is what I've heard you say. Did I hear that correctly? You want to make sure they know that you were listening. And if you got the wrong impression, you want to give them the opportunity to clarify that before you go into your pitch. Because if you have misunderstood something, that could mean everything you're about to pitch them is wrong. Right. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably what I would do, but set up packages, come up with what you feel would be a comfortable price point for you to set up someone's ads and ad account, to set up somebody's high level account, and then to do both of those together. And you can always adjust that along the way, but just go into it with an idea of what you might want to say in case that's the best option for them. And then you won't be caught off guard, but just don't be afraid to say, I'm going to go ahead and put something together that's custom for you. This is the ballpark I'm thinking it's going to be. I'll give you an exact number when I come back. Is that something that's doable before I spend the time putting this together? They're going to understand that, nobody wants to do a bunch of work for somebody preparing this if it's not possible. So yeah, I just think if you can kind of level the playing field on just about any call really, and make sure that they understand, hey, you're a business owner, I'm a business owner. I believe in just honesty and transparency. I want this to be a good fit. If it's a good fit, I'm not going to try and push you into something I don't think is right for you. And I just want to make sure that you're being honest with me about these different things so that neither one of us wastes our time or, goes in a direction that's not what's best for us. So I feel like those types of conversations, it shifts things from a power struggle, because there can always be one person feels like they've got to take control of the call, and you do want to take control of the call in a way. But by saying what you just said, that is taking control of the call and putting it in the direction that you want it to go. So right. I would just say phone call framework all the way, write out your objections, get an idea of some pricing things, and just really listen, ask questions, pitch them what is right for them based on what you hear.
Perfect. It's funny because I'm sure you're probably seeing them texts, and we us four that's on here now, we were talking about this yesterday in our little Facebook thread or whatever, and it's you you basically was talking about exactly what we were talking about, so it's right on time, I'd say that.
Nice. My sales skills, I'll tell you, if you guys can really get good at selling things on the phone, the world is your oyster, truth be told, because there are very few people that are really good and confident and natural, not you're a robot or you're reading off a piece of paper or that you're super aggressive, just really getting comfortable with the psychology of sales and communicating with people, really learning effective communication. It can change everything, because you can close most of your leads, and most people are going to have the complete opposite. They're going to lose most of their leads and close a smaller percentage. And I think part of it is really asking questions and listening more than talking sometimes. It makes them feel better too, because then you really are hearing what they're saying. Like this guy on the call today, he's a really big guy. He's the one that created that laundry software for all the laundry businesses, but he's got a really large laundry operation in New York City. And I already knew a lot about his business. I already know a lot about that business in general, but I still want to know about his specific business and get his thoughts on some of these things too. And so I just asked him, how does the pricing work from your perspective? Like, when is the customer actually charged? How is that communicated, et cetera? And he even said, I really like that you're asking these questions, because it means that you care about like the nitty gritty details, and you're going to be trying to make sure that it's the right fit for this business. People can tell when you're genuinely interested in learning about what it is they do, so that you can come up with the best solution, because there isn't a one size fits all 100%. There are things that are going to be very close. And if you aren't willing to, like, for example, so, Joel Kaplan, my coach, one of my first coaches, his agency model is basically like a one size fits all type of thing, and they do month to month sales. And I mean, he's very successful. It's not anything I would like to do, like that model. It's not for me. But the truth is, a lot of those clients, that the ones that don't get results, they could get results, but they only have this one size fits all offer, essentially. They're not diving deep into these people's inner workings and trying to come up with the right solution for them necessarily. It's like, if our one size fits all works for you, you're going to love it. If it doesn't, then you're going to leave, and that's it. And I wouldn't say that there's like, I don't love doing it that way. I feel like you should really try and help a business based on where they are and what's actually happening, because they all have different issues and they all have different processes, and their customers expect different things. And I just really do feel like people appreciate when someone is genuinely interested, because it's not something everybody does. And it stands out to people that have talked to others in the industry, about working with them, because most people are talking more than they're listening. They're selling from the first moment, when that's should not happen till the end of the call.
Right. Yeah, I can honestly say, like, there's moments as far as sales go, like there's moments where I'm like, just, I don't care. Like, I'll just do the calls. And then there's some times where I make excuses and I don't do it, or I put it off, and then it's a week later, and then it's like, shit, I didn't call those leads, or I didn't follow up. And it's only like, it's like, there's like, I like make up this like fake fear in my head about like I've done calls, so it's not like there isn't like that much different, but it's like, it's weird. It's like, oh, well, I'm not in the mood, or maybe I don't want to be told no today, or some like fake stuff, so I don't do the calls. So it's like, I'm learning, to like I treat it like when I used to play sports. Like I used to, like when I played college and high school or whatever, like I used to just get up in the morning and be super hyped. And I think you mentioned this before too, but it's just like, it's like my day is like full of like this. I'll like work out, I play my music, and then I'm only doing that. So I can't, because I think I try to let myself off the hook by like, oh, I have to do something on high level, or I have to like look at this, or have to look at that. So I'm like realizing now that like, you don't have to do it like that. You're gonna make an excuse if you start looking at small stuff that's not gonna make you any money or push it for you today. So like, I realized like, I have to get up, I have to work out, I have to play music, I have to listen to whatever rap song that like get me hype or whatever, and just go like I'm about to like tear somebody's head off or whatever. So like,
Fire yourself up. I mean, honestly, like me and Russell Brunson, we talked about that yesterday. Pretty cool.
Salute to you. Yeah.
It was pretty cool. But no, I mean, that's one thing he said. He's like, when I have to work out and listen to things in the morning so that I get my energy up, because my family imitates my energy. Like if I'm sluggish and tired, like they're like that too, and puts you in a different mindset. But there's something called eat the frog. And it's basically this concept where the thing you want to do the least, you do it first. You don't do a single other thing until that thing is done. You get it over with. You get it hanging, stop with the hanging over the head all the time. Like this thing that's just pinging in the back of your mind. That like is anti-productive. It not only are you not doing that thing, it's actually impacting you in other ways. You just have to be like, I'm about to close this sale. Let's get it done. Just do it and force yourself to do it. But the truth is, if you've got like a script taped right to your thing, cool, I'm about to go on this call and I'm about to say these things. I'm about to do these things right here. Like you're not winging it. You've got a structure, and you want to close some sales. You want to do this. And here's the thing. The no is not your enemy. No is sometimes the beginning of yes. You just don't know it yet. And there are people who've said no that come back and buy. There are people that say no right now. And I closed a guy on Wednesday from a year ago. My first call with him was a year ago. And then the setup guy that we just, I guess, closed yesterday, I don't think I've ever talked to him personally. Maybe I have. But he said he's been following me for years, and that maybe he's had a call in the past and, it was like never the right time. He was skeptical. He's been burned. He wasn't sure if he could pull the trigger, but he kept seeing me, he kept hearing from me. Like persistence works. And there are so many people that I have closed over the years that it's a year or 2 years later. Like if you just assume that that's a no, then you're wrong a lot of the time, but you also won't turn it into a yes because you're not going to put in the effort. So no is really just like a not right now, unless they say, I sold my business. My business went bankrupt. I no longer have it. I'm retiring and I'm not selling my business to anyone. I'm just shutting it down. Or I really, really don't like you and I do not ever want to work with you. Those are like the 4 hard no's. That's about it. Even people who don't have the funds, that's also not a hard no. That's a not right now because you don't have the funds right now. You could give them suggestions on organic ideas to create more revenue. And guess what? If it works and they get more revenue, they're going to be really happy with you and they're going to come back and they're going to pay you. So, there is really like, you got to kind of say these little mantras. Like there's one from the Ultimate Sales Machine that he's like, the best one to say is, I love cold calling in the morning. I love cold calling in the morning. Like it's the worst thing. Nobody loves cold calling in the morning. Right. But you have to tell yourself that you do. And it reminds me of this thing where like genuinely, like if you force yourself to smile, your brain becomes happier. Like that's a proven fact. So if you're in a really bad mood, you just walk around like that and like you actually get happier. And it's one of those things where we can tell ourselves what to think and how to feel sometimes if we know that what we're thinking or feeling isn't right. A lot of people don't realize that, or they don't do that. And so they remain in those negative mindsets or negative thought patterns. But, a lot of stuff that we think or feel isn't actually true, and that like, if you can realize that as step 1, then everything becomes easier because you're like, okay, I'm really scared, but what am I scared of? I'm not scared of, what am I scared of? I'm not scared of anything. So let's just do it. And you really can convince yourself that you're excited to do something, even if at first it's uncomfortable. It's just basically, I wouldn't call faking it till you make it necessarily, but in a way it is. You can't sell anybody else until you're sold yourself. So if you're not excited to be on a call and talk about your business and really help somebody, why are they going to be excited? So if you just think about it, that's another good Russell Brunson point. There are a lot of good points in the interview, but if you can just do nothing but think about, who was I put on earth to serve? Like who needs my help? Who can I help? That has got to be the motivating factor. Cause like things get hard sometimes. There are plenty of things that I don't want to do that have to be done for my business. And you can get to a point where you can get somebody else to take care of it. And that feels good if you really don't like doing something like sales calls. I don't hate sales calls. Actually, before I started selling years and years ago, I thought that I was the last person in the world to do sales. Like I thought that I was the opposite of the type of person who should be doing sales. But when you can really just think about it as all sales is building a relationship. That is all that it is. It is communication. And if you have something that really solves their problem, it's easy. If you don't, then you should sell something different because it's going to be a very uphill battle if your thing does not solve a problem. But relationships is all that it is. Like imagine you're talking to a new person who you don't know where the opportunities could lead. Because yesterday, for instance, okay, I got this referral from one of my setup clients, and it's a guy who actually lives in my state, like maybe an hour away. And he's like this older guy. He's a commercial developer as his main job, but his wife got breast cancer, and they just started this kind of like pet project. It's called Delta Belt. It's basically like these belts and pocket squares that are like kind of like preppy. They're for like horse racing and college sports and golf. Like that's like the vibe. That's the kind of person who would buy these. And it's not their primary business. He's like, it's crazy though, because he's like ready to invest money to grow this. They just want it to succeed. Basically, they don't need it to pay their bills or anything. But we just sold him a business intensive first, and he's going to end up doing agency services with me. And then I gave him some PR people that he could reach out to for kind of the other side of it. But we just started talking. Like I like to get into like real life conversations with people and like not make it so stiff and businessy. Like I really want to get to know them and hear their thoughts. So anyway, he was like, he had to take a call from his wife when we were on the call. It was like the business intensive delivery call. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. My wife actually works in state government. The legislature's in session right now, so we don't have a lot of time to talk. I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. Like, what does she do? Is she one of the state legislator, representatives? He's like, no, she's actually the assistant to 5 of the state legislator people. So I was like, that's really cool. I've been, trying to think of ways to get involved. Not really sure what I want to do yet. I want to try and make a difference, but blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, he starts telling me about the challenges that they have with technology. He's like, oh my gosh, your skill set would be perfect for them. They're so like, ancient, like nothing they have is up to date. And he said, the mayor of, it's Lexington, Kentucky, where he lives. And he's like, the mayor of Lexington, he's now the state Department of Transportation head. And he's very tech savvy. And I think he would really want to meet you and see what you can do for them. He's like, my wife also, he was telling me about all this stuff that she has to do as this assistant to the legislatures. And I was like, oh, I got a solution for that. No problem. Like, we definitely need to talk, because the thing is that the solution to me is like obvious. The solution to them is like completely non-existent. I just assumed, like, that thought never even crossed my mind. Mm-hmm. But hey, that could be a way that I get involved and I help, using my skills. But we never would have talked about that if I had been so focused on, the sales call, the script, trying to pitch them on the services at the end of the call. Like if you can like let yourself be flexible and genuinely get to know people, you have no idea where some opportunities could take you. Because I love so many of the people I've worked with. Like we are, it's just, you get to know them in a different way if you let yourself. But too many people, they don't let it go there. Sometimes it's not ideal for the first call, but sometimes it is. I mean, if you can build a rapport with someone, that is always step one. That's the first part of the phone call framework. Build a rapport, asking questions, getting them to open up, finding common ground. Like that's what it's all about. If you can find an area of common ground with somebody, you are going to be so much more likely to sell them anything. They might just buy from you because they really like you. And that is the only reason. I'm not even kidding. I buy from people because I like them all the time. Like not even so much because I need that thing, but because like, hey, I want to support that person. Or, hey, they're super cool. I'm not even going to check, I'm not going to shop around for quotes and things like that. I like this person. I'm going to use them. So I would just think about the calls differently. Like think about them as an opportunity to like get into the unknown. Who knows where the opportunity could lead, honestly. I don't know. I've had a lot of those weird stories. Like I got to know this guy when I was selling 10 years ago in the jewelry industry. He's like this huge, he's like this, he's this huge like jewelry designer. And we just hit it off like phone. We never met in person. He took me and my friend to, we met up with him in Atlanta one time. He took us to these big restaurants. And I mean, I have a picture wearing like this $3 million like diamond necklace. It just really random stuff. But he was just somebody I sold to over the phone. But I talked to him about other things than just business or the solution that I had. And you find a lot of really cool people. And once you do, referrals get a lot easier too, because people want to refer you, not just for the services you provide, but because they like you and they want to help you out. You know, people buy from those they know, like, and trust. They know you when they know who you are, but they also know you when they really know you. Like, who really are you? And like you, common ground, finding some area that you guys can relate to each other. And trust comes sometimes the slowest, obviously, but sometimes it can come just from being able to genuinely be honest with people and tell people that that's what you expect. And you just always want things to be transparent, whether it's good or bad. And they'll trust you a lot more because they know that you're going to be honest with them in all situations. And until you prove them wrong, it becomes a lot easier. So I know that was kind of like a long spiel, but I think that if you can think about like the cool, amazing friendships or opportunities that are on the other side of that phone, it's a more exciting thing than just like a sales call. Like, don't think about the possibility that they say no. Maybe they do. Who cares? Or maybe they don't need your help, or maybe you don't want to work with them. Or maybe you find somebody awesome that will literally help you in ways that you never imagined in life. You know, you're just never going to know until you're talking to that person and really letting them tell you more than just the standard, here's what I do, here's how much we make, here's the demographics I'm looking for. You know, really genuinely just open up and see where it goes.
Okay, great. I think that was great for all of us here. I mean, thanks on that one.
Well, sales is tough for everybody. You know, sales is kind of like a marketer's enemy if they think about it the wrong way, because they're like, I want to be marketing on the back end where people don't see me, hear me, talk to me, you know, like, let me just market. And I love secluding myself and just marketing, you know. That's another thing Russell Brunson said too. He loves building funnels and marketing. He gave over the CEO seat of ClickFunnels like 5 months ago because that wasn't what he wanted to do. He likes just like doing the thing. And I think for all of us, we like doing the thing, and that's why we're doing the thing. But there are other aspects to it that we can eventually give to someone else. But while it's here for us to do, got to make the most of it.
Got to make the most of it.
Yeah. And truthfully, that's the only way a business grows is through sales. With no sales, there's no business. With no increased sales, there's no growing business. So if you ever want to get to the place where you have somebody else to do your sales, you've got to do a good enough job of it initially to get the ball rolling to where you've got more money to invest in ads, to then get the scheduled calls that bring somebody good on. So I do know people that are like, I am terrible at sales. I hate sales. I don't want to do it. Should I just hire a salesperson right away? That is an option. I still don't think it's the best option. Like, I think that you as the business owner, you have to at least know how to sell your own product, you know, because if you don't, who else is really going to? How are you going to be able to give them suggestions on, hey, here are the questions that people are going to ask. Here's the best, way to overcome this objection, because they're not going to be familiar with marketing, most likely. You know, they might be familiar with it, but trust me when I tell you, selling, like being a salesperson in the marketing industry, if there is not a one size fits all solution, there's a learning curve. Like they have to understand how to talk to someone about it and think about things on the fly And it is not, that was like my biggest struggle with hiring a salesperson, is I didn't think anybody else could do it. Like the stuff that I talk to people about on calls, how could a salesperson do that? And the truth is they can't, but that's fine, because that's not even really what the call is about necessarily. I used to give people way too much free advice, and I thought it was great. People liked me for it, and I was able to sell, but I still used the phone call framework. If I wanted to sell, that's what I was using. And I used another type of like script or framework before, because sales calls to anybody can always be intimidating. But when you've got a system that you can default to, if you ever get stuck or lost, okay, where am I? I always kind of default to ask a question. Like, it keeps the conversation going and it shows that you're interested. And it's always weird if somebody's like saying something and then you just kind of like are like reading this random like point, like you're like forcing it. Have you ever seen the movie Hitch?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Listen and respond. That's the thing. Listen, but if you do feel like you don't know what to say next, or you kind of lose your place, just ask another question. And I would maybe even come up with kind of a default question that wouldn't be one of the first ones that you would ask, but that is a really good one. So you could always ask them like, tell me about the demographic makeup of your city. Like, do you feel like there's other groups of people that you could be converting? Just something that's actually relevant, but that is not necessarily one of the first ones you'd be going through. And while they're answering, try and listen, but then find your place in the framework. Where am I? Where do I need to be next? And then continue to push through it. And I mean, another good default is if they say something and you're not sure where you are, well, summarize what they just said. Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you said you're doing X amount in revenue, you feel like your biggest opportunity is here. You feel like you haven't really been able to capture it because of this. And so you're really looking for somebody who can help you solve that problem. Is that right? And it could just be based on the questions they've answered previously. But anytime you can like summarize, it's a good way to regroup. And also it's the step before transitioning the call into the sale anyway. So it's like, if you can just kind of have these things where, if I get stuck, this is what I do. Or if I get that objection, this is what I do. It takes a lot of the anxiety out of it, because you're not having to be put on the spot. You are prepared. And also looking at their websites and things like that before the calls, that can really help. I used to stalk people's profiles and like find out what they like, like, do they have a family? Do they, what do they like to do for fun? If you have any common ground in those areas, well, there we go. You've already found something before you've talked to them. And so that you can at least connect on some of those points. Or let's say you're trying to overcome an objection and they've got young kids or something like that. You could be like, I understand that this is an investment, but I think the most important thing that you need to be thinking about is, what kind of legacy do you want to leave for your children? Is this a business that you want to be able to pass down to them? So it's like, that's not something you'd say to somebody without kids, because it doesn't resonate with them. But if you already know that about them, or if you've asked in the conversation, hey, I'd love to just hear more about you. Where do you live? Do you have a family? How long have you been in this industry? And just get them to talk about things. Then relating those points back to your objections, it works way better, because it's going to hit home a lot harder, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So anywho, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
It wasn't a question. It was like a comment that I just went hard on. But I do honestly think that we should work on sales as much as possible, because the marketing stuff is going to be fine. You guys have these calls, you can hop on at any time, and we can figure out the tech if you're stuck, whatever. That's kind of like the easy part. The sales side can be harder, because I'm not on those calls with you. You can send me call recordings if you feel like you blew it and you don't know what you did wrong. Well, guess what? High Level has recorded that call for you. So send it and I'll listen to it. So listening to your own calls is really helpful. I mean, it really, truly is. You may even cringe in some spots, and that's okay because we're noticing what did not sound natural, what did not feel right. And then you can ask yourself, okay, what would I do differently next time? Because there's really no way to improve ever if you don't know what the problem is.
Yeah.
And people's like default is just to say, I suck at sales calls or I hate sales calls. When really there's just specific areas within those calls that need to be improved. And you've got to find out what those are. But I really do just say go all the way, use the framework, and it makes life easier. And it forces you to get out of your little comfort zone sometimes. You got to ask for the sale if it's a good fit. And that's where most people fail. They don't ask for it. You know? Like you got to assume the sale. If everything has gone right on the call, if they have said all the right things that makes them a good fit, if they have not presented you with any objections, if you know that they're a good fit for you, then if it gets to the end of the call, say, how does that sound? Or does that sound good? If they say yes, say, great, Visa or MasterCard. How would you like to pay? Let's go ahead and get rolling. You just have to assume they're going to buy. And then if they say, well, blah, 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 okay, well, let them have their objection and overcome it. But if you just say, yeah, this has been great, think it over, let me know. I mean, they're not going to be like rushing to give you thousands of dollars. Like if you don't even want it enough to ask for it, they're going to be like, okay, I guess I will think it over. I guess I will talk to some other people. Don't even assume. If it's gone poorly, you could even say, hey, I really appreciate the time. I don't personally think it's a good fit. I think there's going to be somebody else that is a better match for what you're looking for. If I run across somebody, or if, I'd be happy to send you a referral to X, Y, or Z. If you really don't think it's good, like if you're not vibing, go ahead and say that. And end the call. It's really, that's in the framework too. Like if it's not a good fit, end the call. You don't have to do the whole thing if it does not make sense. So just getting yourself in the habit of doing those hard things first thing in the morning. Don't give yourself time to talk yourself out of it. Very easy to do for everyone. And then just make sure that you're prepared. You're prepared with the framework. You're prepared. You know which business you're talking to and what they do and all of that good stuff. And then you have kind of practiced overcoming those objections, whether it's out loud, written down, you feel like you're ready. And if you're ready for something, it's always going to have a much better outcome.